Picasso once said this. He said that all children are born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up.
When President George W. Bush signed No Child Left Behind into legislation, the bill was met with relative bipartisan support and praise. Senators such as Hillary Clinton and the late Ted Kennedy endorsed the bill and its sweeping reform of public education in the United States. Many art educators also saw the promise in the bill.
What led me most to become an art teacher is knowing that I could powerfully impact kids, and I knew that school really wasn't my strength as far as when it came to science, when it came to social studies, other areas, but I always excelled in art.
Yet the tide quickly changed as the bill evolved in implementation. While 9 core subjects had been proclaimed by the bill, only 2 surfaced in actual assessments: language arts and mathematics.
Because annual yearly progress is based on assessments of these 2 subjects, instructional time in other areas has suffered. Over the past decade since the bill's signing into law, the numbers tell the story of the cutbacks in arts education. A decade ago, 1 in 5 schools offered dance or theater. Today, 1 in 25 elementary schools offers theater, and only 1 in 33 offers dance. 1.3 million elementary students receive no music instruction, while 4 million elementary students receive no visual arts instruction at school.
This is a national problem, and St. Louis schools are not immune to it.
This will be the first year that there is going to be a decrease in the amount of students that I will be able to see. It is very sad. It seems to be the trend that's happening across the United States, actually. I just came from San Diego, and there are many schools there that don't have art, music, or PE. So usually we're 10 years behind that curve. They are currently in San Diego looking at adding it back because they've realized it hasn't improved test scores, it hasn't made things different, and that students are missing a lot of the problem-solving skills that they need to be functional in the workforce.
Most fundamentally, the arts are important because people learn in different ways. The arts can catalyze learning in students who might not otherwise latch on to traditional instructional methods. Dr. Howard Gardner coined this idea as the theory of multiple intelligences.
We all had exactly the same kind of mind, and there was only one kind of intelligence. Then we could teach everybody the same thing in the same way and assess them in the same way, and that would be fair. But once we realized that people have very different kinds of minds, different kinds of strengths, some people are good in thinking spatially, some people are good in thinking language, other people are very logical, other people need to do hands-on, they need to actually explore actively and to try things out. Once we realize that, then an education which treats everybody the same way is actually the most unfair education.
Not only does this suggest that eliminating the arts creates an unfair educational environment for different types of learners, there is substantial evidence that instructional time in the arts actually helps students in those areas that are assessed. According to core data submitted to the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, fine arts education is significantly related to higher standardized test scores, higher attendance and graduation rates, and lower disciplinary rates for students with serious infractions.
In addition, the arts are especially important for a population that is increasingly underserved, at-risk youth. The arts opportunity gap is widest for children in high-poverty schools, which turns the issue of maintaining arts education in public schools into an equity and civil rights issue. In response to the release of a study by the National Center for Education Statistics, Secretary of Education Arne Duncan sheds light on this very issue.
It's interesting. If we want our children to develop a sense of healthy self-esteem, to sort of find their passions, it might be algebra, it might be biology, but it might be dance, it might be music, it might be drama. And again, having those opportunities for young children is hugely important. If we want our children to be engaged in school, we worry about the dropout rate is far too high. Sometimes it's what's going on during the school day or after school, being in the drama club, or being in the band, or being in the orchestra, that keeps that child excited about coming to school every single day. And so if we're trying to do the right thing for our children, if we're trying to do the right thing for what employers are looking for, I think the answer is pretty obvious here. And the other obvious point is that when the children who come from the least wealthy families don't have access, those are children who aren't getting this after school or on the weekends due to their family's ability to pay for it themselves. And so if we're not doing it in school, it's basically not going to happen.
Finally, arts education fosters creativity and confidence, desirable qualities for professional growth and societal contribution.
I had a great story recently, I love telling it, of a little girl who was in a drawing lesson. She was 6 and she was at the back drawing, and the teacher said this little girl hardly ever paid attention, and in this drawing lesson she did. And the teacher was fascinated. She went over to her and she said, "What are you drawing?" And the girl said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And the teacher said, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And the girl said, "They will in a minute." Kids will take a chance. If they don't know, they'll have a go. Am I right? They're not frightened of being wrong. Now, I don't mean to say that being wrong is the same thing as being creative. What we do know is, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. If you're not prepared to be wrong. And by the time they get to be adults, most kids have lost that capacity. They have become frightened of being wrong. And we run our companies this, by the way. We stigmatize mistakes. And we're now running national education systems where mistakes are the worst thing you can make. And the result is that we are educating people out of their creative capacities. I believe this passionately, that we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. Or rather, we get educated out of it.
It is important to recognize the many reasons arts education should continue to be included in our public education curriculum. Perhaps the words of a student's letter will say it best.
Let me start out by saying thank you. I don't really get along with the other teachers at home, but you're different. You inspire me to think creatively and chase after my dreams. It's like you're in my mind saying you got this. You are the best art teacher I ever had.